That's what I do.
Howdy, Mike here with Fastlane Fitness. This is episode 2 of Bourbon and Barbells, but today we're changing it up. We're not even established in a routine yet, and we're going with red wine today. So I've got very special guest, my buddy or my lady bro, one of my favorite people in the coaching profession, Susan with So Fit Wellness, and Susan's like a guru when it comes to habit change. That's pretty much what I'm calling her. So we're gonna really be talking about habits today. We were just talking about the pros and cons of having a stem on your glassware when drinking wine, but we're mainly going to be talking about habits. I've got an interesting fact for you. Apparently, 1 glass of red wine is equal to running a mile. This is an actual study. And no, that doesn't mean that you can you can have, as Susan, who runs marathons, told me, 26
No.
glasses of red wine. Oh, I'm sorry, you do triathlons. She has the 26 glasses of wine going to be a marathon. Sounds more like a hospital visit to me. But anyway, I need to stop talking. Susan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe I could just get my 5K in tonight by just drinking 3.1 glasses of wine. So
I like that.
That's pretty good.
That's a good, it doesn't work that way, people. I'm not advocating that. This, I don't know. I've heard good things, and I believe the study was done at my alma mater. So I'm going to lend it some credibility.
Well, then it must be credible. If it was done at Texas A&M, it's credible. Everybody knows that. I know.
They're a leading research university. Okay, thanks and gig 'em. So we're going to be talking about habits, and I guess my first question to you, Susan, we'll just kick right off with this, is kind of what do you consider, what are habits, and like why should we care about habits, especially in fitness?
So habits are basically anything that we do that is automatic. So there's an element of automaticity. So when when you're pulling out of your neighborhood in the morning and you're going to work and you always turn left, and then like Saturday you go and you turn left like you always do Monday through Friday, and really you meant to go right to go to like the coffee shop, and you're like, ah. So habits make up anywhere from, depending on the study, anywhere from like, I think like 40 to 60% of our daily lives, like we do on habit. Basically, if you think about it like on autopilot.
Right.
And the reason why we would use them in health and fitness is that we can kind of harness the power of creating habits to do things that are good for us, that become automatic. And so that's actually a really actionable way for people to move into healthier habits. So we say, oh yeah, I want to develop healthy habits. Well, how do we do that? And there's kind of a way to do that, or multiple ways to do that people have used. And that's pretty much it. That's why habits are good. Eating vegetables is good. So why not just make it a habit?
Yeah. So I can definitely see how, like, with habits, just having your fitness, your lifestyle, your diet, your plan, your exercise, whatever, be something that you just automatically do. I can see the benefit of that. And we are going to go really in depth about like how to create habits and stuff. But, what's the benefit, or I guess we're going to go into how do you create habits? I guess that's really the next question. But, before we get to that, like, why, why, what are kind of, I guess, the alternative? Like, where everybody's trying to create a habit, maybe, maybe not. Like, is that not the normal goal of fitness, is to make it a habit?
Absolutely. No, I think that's the goal of everybody in fitness, is to make everybody go to the gym and have a regular gym routine, to eat better. That's the goal of everyone. The way that I do it is just to really break down the habit into something that is manageable and sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that fits really well with people who have really busy lifestyles and competing valid interests for their time, right? People who aren't necessarily able to commit to learning a lot about nutrition, or they aren't able to commit to a lot of time in the gym or things like that. Habits are a way to measure success that is something that's within our control. And that's really a big piece of habit change.
So, so let's, you know what, let's just go right into this then, because we're talking about this. I mean, I was going to wait, but I think it'd be silly to do that. Like, how can we, I think, the biggest struggle that people have is getting started and sticking to something. I mean, it's hard to stick to your plan until it is a habit. So what can people do to make habits and make fitness become a habit, instead of something that they just power through until they reach a result, or something that they're trying to use willpower, they're trying to do something, but it never really becomes ingrained. Like how do we make it part of our life?
So that's a really, really good question. What I think that most people think is that it's a real black and white situation. Sometimes they treat their fitness or their health as a black and white situation. Either I'm on the wagon or I'm off the wagon, or something like that. And really, if you think about, I tell people, there's no wagon. It doesn't exist, right? And you're just on this journey of trying to constantly improve yourself. And for some people, it's like, I'm on this fitness thing and I'm doing really great. And, I'm doing all these things. And there are, studies show that people have the capacity for like 6 to 8 weeks a year, sometimes, to be able to like be in that full tilt mode where they can really like go at something hard. But for most people who are living with, like I said, valid other things that they're working on, their family, their careers, etc., they can make this progress not only at a certain pace, but like realistically and sustainably at a certain pace, right? So they're working on, let's take going to the gym as a habit. What's realistic? Is it realistic to be at the gym 5 days a week when you don't even have a gym membership yet? Not really.
Right.
So what I always encourage people to do is make a plan for this week, or even for today, that you're 95% sure that you can nail, right? Like, it's got to be pretty much a slam dunk. And so when people do that, of course, when people get started, they're super excited and they want to lose all the weight and they want to eat all the right things and do all the right things. And I say, let's pick something that you can nail this week, whether that's preparing for dinners or going to the gym or something like that. And make sure that you're 95% successful at it, because success is going to breed more success. When you do something good and you're like, yeah, I nailed that, you're going to be more motivated to do something else or to do more of the thing that you were working on.
So it's all about momentum and guaranteed victories. Mm-hmm. So instead of, maybe if you're wanting to lose a certain amount of weight, instead of focusing on losing the weight, you're saying like, I'm going to, not, only have dessert 3 times this week instead of every single night. Like, or I, know I need to go work out instead of committing to going to the gym or running 5 times a week. It's just, I'm going to get 1 workout in. Like, if I do more, awesome. But I know I can get 1 workout in. That kind of what you're getting at? Yeah.
It's, a lot of this is based, and I will say that I am certainly no guru. I use a lot of other sources, to learn about how to coach this, but
come on, Susan. Yeah, I talked you up, and now you're trying to.
No, I mean,
oh God, no.
But everybody learns from somebody else, and
For sure.
And I will certainly credit the guys at Habitry, the people at Habitry. They certainly have helped me a ton in learning how to coach this and do this well, and about it, the science behind it. But you when you fail, like, how do you feel? And how do you feel? You don't feel good. Does that make you dig in deeper? Or is it like, yeah, I feel awesome. I hit the gym twice this week, and last week I didn't even have a gym membership. Like, okay. So that momentum trumps all the things, right?
Right.
That's a favorite saying of one of the guys that I work with, Omar. Momentum trumps everything. And so getting people rolling and keeping them rolling is always my main goal.
That's awesome. And I like that idea of momentum. And you said something else that I wanted to touch on, because I talk about this with my clients all the time. And it was kind of that, I did 2 workouts this week. Last week, I sat my butt on the couch and did nothing. And looking backwards at what you've done and how you've improved instead of looking forward to where you want to be, right? So if you want to be working out 5 times a week, and you're looking like I did too, I'm not there yet. It's really discouraging, and that's actually going to kill your momentum. But when you do, like you said, and you look back and go, okay, I improved so much this week. Like, these are all the good things I did. Now you're excited. Now you think you can do better, or you can at least do the same. And that's going to help build that momentum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think, it's super empowering when you've empowered yourself, when you've said, this is what I'm going to do. I've set out to do it. I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter if, a lot of times I have clients who are super successful, and you do too, Mike,
Yeah.
at what they do in their jobs or anything like that. And it's like, oh, big deal. Like I ate vegetables with every meal. I'm like, big deal. That is a big deal, because it is going to translate into those outcomes that people come to you and say that they desire. But we don't really have any control over the outcomes. And so what I always focus on with goals is what's within your control. What can you control? And right, like going to the gym, it's way more in your control. Like, obviously, you got a sick kid or something like that, things fall out of your control, but it's way more within your control to say, I'm going to go to the gym twice this week, or I'm going to have dessert once this week or something like that, than saying, I'm going to lose 2 pounds this week.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, like, I mean, well, we can't control our outcomes. I mean, that's what you just said. So, we have no control. What happens on the scale? I mean, you can follow a nutrition plan and your body does weird stuff. Like, you might, on paper it'll work out, but just because you do all the right things doesn't mean that the scale is always going to show that, or it fluctuates, those kind of stuff. So we've got no control over what our body does, but we have control over our actions. And so I like how you shifted from, instead of focusing on, let's lose 2 pounds a week or let's lose 50 pounds, it's just, let's focus on doing these actions every single week. Let's focus on the process. Is that really how you go about it?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely process over outcome. And there is, as I tell people, there is nothing sexy about it, right? Mm-hmm. Like I personally am a really fun person, so I can make it entertaining, but there is nothing probably very sexy about the things I say when I say, okay, we're going to work on the process. But it is so much more fulfilling, I find, in my own experience and in the experience of my clients. Like, the mindset shifts, because there's so many outcomes that come out of it that they don't verbalize when they come to me. Almost everyone who comes to me wants to lose weight. And that's the main thing that I do in my coaching. And, but nobody says, I want to be able to run after my kids and tackle them. Right. Or like, I want to be able to like crawl into my crawl space and fix my, fix whatever is leaking in the bathtub.
Right.
But those are all the outcomes that people have, or they have mindset shifts. Like, I actually really like vegetables, or lots and lots of unpredictable outcomes that they could have that are actually life enhancing. So that the process becomes way more valuable than like this, I wanted to lose 25 pounds when I came to you outcome.
So when
not
you're
way more valuable, but equally valuable.
So when you're working with your clients and they come to you and they've got this goal to lose weight, or a specific amount of weight, or to run a race or something like that, are you pursuing goals? Are you focusing on goals, or how do habits fit into this equation with goals?
Absolutely. So, we go through a process where we talk through what kinds of things do we need to do to get to this goal? What's it going to look like? What kind of person are you going to be when you're at this goal, right? What are you, if you're a person who's going to run a half marathon, what does that person do? What does that person look like? How does that person train? And then we set those goals. Really, it is a little bit like mini goals, but they're not mini outcome goals getting to a big goal. It's not like, I lost 65 pounds, right? And so I used to think that I would set like 10-pound goals to lose my weight, right? And I would get a reward at the end of 10 pounds. That totally never But if I set mini process goals, like, okay, I'm going to run, if I've got a half marathon, I'm going to start running 4 days a week, right? Or 3 days a week. And then I'm going to increase that to 4 days a week. And then maybe I'm going to increase that to 5 days a week. And I'm going to increase. So we're working on building up to that goal, because really for people, they might know the first step, and they might know the second step, but maybe they don't know the 13th step they need to take. Right. So with coaching, and sometimes we need to go back to step one, right? Like I had a client on the phone today, and she came back from vacation, and she was like, well, I think I need to plan. And planning, it's a habit that we've already been working on and that she already was pretty solid on, but it had kind of started slipping away.
By planning, do you mean like
planning meals? Yeah, meal prep. Yeah. So planning dinners, what everybody was going to eat for dinner, planning her breakfast in the morning. She pretty much is really solid on breakfast. She has a plan for lunch, but like dinner was totally falling apart. So it was like sometimes we have to take a step back in order to take a step forward. But that's really what I do with my clients is, yeah, we are working towards losing weight. These are the ways that everybody knows the ways to lose weight, right?
Right.
I mean, there's no secret here. We don't, as coaches or trainers, we don't hold any like magic power where it's like this secret will get you there. For most people who aren't prepping for some kind of like crazy competition or something like that, there isn't really a lot of secret sauce. There's some basics that just need to be done. And that's what we do with habits. We walk the walk with them. We do the practice of it. And that's really where the magic is like in the practice of it. Like I'm doing this, I'm doing it, I'm being consistent, I'm having momentum, and then I'm leveling up when I'm ready to level up.
Gotcha. And I like too, you'd mentioned this earlier and you kind of talked about it again, like, so your client, she kind of took a step back, but now she's moving past it. She's moving forward. And it was, so it was almost like she messed up. Then that made her realize that she needed to really focus on this one thing to like make progress. And it goes back to what you said about like, there's no wagon. This is just like your habits, you're going to screw up at first. You're going to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect to establish the habit. You have to just keep going. And so, when you hit that, like, okay, I'm trying to establish a habit. I've gone 6 days straight. On the 7th day, I messed up. Well, next time I want to chain it together, maybe go 10 days, or you just keep picking yourself back up and continue going until it's second nature. And so I really like that idea of like, who cares about failure? There is no wagon. It's just continuing to push yourself constantly forward.
Yeah. And that's, I think it's also really, really helpful for things like maintenance. I mean, how many people have you met who are like, oh yeah, 5 years ago, I lost 25 pounds and then, just I've gained it all back and it's kind of a mess. And people who have been working with habits and who are kind of coached in this way tend to be a little bit more cognizant or aware of like, oh, this is kind of slipping away. At least in my experience. And even for me too, I'll notice, oh man, like for me, if I have a stressor in my life and something starts to fall away, like planning or, meal preparation or eating my vegetables, I can be like, oh, I'm aware of that. And now I'm going to fix it. And I'm going to fix it now before it snowballs into 25 pounds ago. I lost 25 pounds 5 years ago, that kind of thing. Because really for our clients who work in weight loss, it's not, I'm not going to say that weight loss isn't hard, because it is hard and change is super, super hard.
Right.
But maintenance is a huge issue that a lot of people don't talk about,
Well, and it's hard, but the process is simple. It's just the act of like following that process is hard.
Right. And I think that the great thing about coaching using habits or, like working on habits with my clients is that, we're really actively walking through that process and practicing every day.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little more, because I'm familiar with Susan's coaching style, and it's all habit based. It's not the traditional, like, here's your diet plan, here's your workouts, like have at it. And it's a lot more hands-on. It's a lot more personalized. But, you were talking about there's these people, this happens so much. I've done this myself. I'm sure you did when you were first starting out. Everybody does it. Where like you have great success, and and you lose weight, and then you're like, fantastic, I've hit my goal. I'm going to, as I said on the last episode, I like finished my 30 days I was trying to do, and then ate a whole pizza and a slice of cheesecake all by myself and went into a coma. You know, like you get done with your diet and you go right back to what you did in the past because you haven't established a habit. And so I think the way you do it is like much better for long-term sustainability. So can you talk a little bit about like focusing on habits right from the beginning versus just doing a diet, which is, you know, it's a certain time frame?
Sure. And I'm not bagging on diets. I think that diets certainly have their place. If I was, when I was talking earlier about how everybody has a capacity at certain points in their life or certain
Right.
points in their year or whatever, to kind of really dig deep and focus in and kind of double up on eating well and working out a lot and that kind of thing. And then you can make a lot of progress. Habits is the great piece where you can really maintain those the gains that you've made in your dieting period. But with my clients, a lot of my clients are super busy. They have a ton of stuff competing for their time. And so they, starting with habits is really the way that they can really fit it into their life. I feel like when I first started as a trainer, I was like, you got to eat like this, you got to train like this, you got to be like this, whatever. And I'll be honest, like I made those mistakes too. Every trainer does, or I mean, not mistakes, they're not mistakes, but it's a certain way.
You have to learn to.
Yeah. Like I had a lot of people just kind of fall off, right? Like kind of right away. Like they could be good for 4 weeks and I'd be like, dang, what just happened?
Right.
And then they'd be like, they would feel like they failed, and then they would feel embarrassed about their failure, and then they wouldn't come back.
Right.
And so that's when I started being like, there has to be another way for me to be able to not just keep clients, but also keep people moving on their path,
Right. To help them reach those goals there in the end. So what would you say, like, if you've got someone out, so I think this is great. You're talking about people that are busy, that have a lot of things going on in their lives. I mean, we're both parents and balancing that and our businesses and all that. And we're busy and we work with a lot of busy people. I mean, I know you work with a lot of working moms and things that are, I mean, incredibly busy. And I work with a lot of attorneys, entrepreneurs, business people that have a lot of success in their, careers, but maybe don't have that same success in their fitness a lot of times because they don't feel like they have the time. Right. So since I'm really interested in this, since we work with those kind of people. So what would you say, what are like 3 to 5 habits? I was going to say 5, but I'm going to say 3 to 5, give you some leeway. Like what are some basic habits that you would recommend people focus on, especially busy people when they're just starting out? That way they can make this part of their lifestyle instead of something that they either try and like force to do and don't have the time to do, or, stick to for that 6 to 8 weeks and then totally fall off the wagon, which I know we were trying to eliminate that phrase there.
The wagon. Yeah. So I think, I try to pretty much categorize my habits into one of 3 categories of habits. The first one being awareness. So that might be something like recording your food. And that is like why places like Weight Watchers have been so successful in the past, is because recording your food is a really powerful habit. Becoming aware of what you're putting in your mouth is super powerful. I like to be, and I like to be creative, and you've used this habit before too with your group is, taking pictures of your food. It's a totally different, fun way of recording your food. It's not on a little piece of paper like the first time I went to Weight Watchers. Yes, I'm a lifer Weight Watchers person. Not that I support that anymore, but it's fine. But I always say that to people. I say, record it however you want it. You want to record it on a piece of paper? Great. You want to record it in MyFitnessPal? Great. You want to take pictures of your food? Great. But just becoming aware of it. And one of the most powerful habits for me in awareness was eating slowly. So that I wouldn't count that necessarily in the top 3 to 5 for most people, but it was a game changer habit for me personally.
Well, eating slowly is such a big thing because it takes a while for our bodies to process the food, and this is like one of those things, like, I highly recommend, if you don't eat dinner with your family and have conversation, like, have that family time, because one, it's great quality time, but when you're eating and you're stopping to talk, and a meal that maybe you could scarf down in 5 minutes stretches to 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
you're giving your body time to recognize the food is there. And so
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to be less likely, to eat more. So I think that's a fantastic one. And obviously, I mean, just about every coach is going to tell you to track your intake, but
Mm-hmm.
I think how you framed it, it's becoming aware, right? It's not necessarily track that way you'll lose weight. It's when you start tracking your foods, you start to realize, I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I don't eat a lot of protein. I eat a lot of crap from a box in a bag. And that
Mm-hmm.
crap in a box in a bag has a lot more calories than I thought. Or
Mm-hmm.
when my wife told me the other day, her coworkers were trying to eat healthy and they ordered salads. And, my wife, she's done very, very well losing her weight after the baby. And so she's very careful. And she came home and she's like, they ordered these salads. And I looked them up in MyFitnessPal, and they were 1,200 calories. And these ladies are wondering why they're not losing weight and they're eating healthy. So I think awareness and tracking are fantastic. That's a great idea. What
Sure.
else?
So I always do awareness habits, a planning habit of some kind. I think planning is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get away from it because it's also completely unsexy, but it's reality.
Yeah.
And then the other category of habit that I usually use is some kind of starting to be aware of nutrients and the nutrients you're
Okay.
taking in. And I almost always start first, particularly because I coach mostly women, with protein.
Right.
And most women are woefully under protein, kind of, they haven't increased their protein intake. And I feel like that's huge for satiety and feeling
Mm-hmm.
satisfied, versus just having these snacks all day long, like snacks of crackers and whatever, even vegetables. And I did a
Yeah.
lot of experimenting with that, like with, oh, I got to eat more vegetables, or I got to eat more fat. I went like super paleo for a while and ate
Yeah.
bacon all the time. But protein is a game changer, I think, for a lot of my clients. So,
Yeah, I think so too. And it's funny because I've seen my wife's diet evolve over the years and everything. And one of the things she always tells me is that the biggest change that she made, well, really from before, she was pregnant to now, 10 months after our son was born, was she really started eating protein with every meal, like being very conscious of it, and then reduce the snacking. And part of the reason she was able to reduce the snacking was because of the protein. But I mean, she said she was always eating like Fiber One bars and little, popcorn and just like little snacks and things. And it was just constant, more and more and more. And she didn't realize, awareness, how many calories it was. And ever since, she started becoming more aware of that protein, it was like, I don't even need those snacks anymore. And I think that, like you said, that is a game changer. When you're not hungry, you don't need to eat, and
mhm.
you're gonna reach your results better.
Yeah. And there are tons and tons of awareness habits.
Mm-hmm.
You can really think about like cueing into those hunger signals that your body's sending you. That's a super powerful awareness
Yeah.
habit. Like waiting until you're hungry and then waiting a little bit more, because I think that people
Mm-hmm.
think like hunger is this emergency situation, right?
Right.
And like, oh, my body's hungry, I got to eat now. And then like you overeat or use something like that, or hunger is just your body saying it's time to eat.
Yeah, no, that's great. And from an awareness, one of the things I always tell people is like, maybe you're thirsty. The signal your body gives for thirsty is the same signal it gives for hunger. And so
Absolutely.
sometimes you can knock back a glass of water and that'll take care of it.
Right.
But I love your like, just wait on it, instead of going for seconds right away, just give it some time to sit and see, are you really hungry? Maybe go start the dishes or start packaging up food. I like to take my leftover dinner for lunch to, kind of reduce decisions. I've had a healthy meal for dinner. I might as well pack it for lunch. Like,
Mhm.
pack your lunch for the next day. And if you're still hungry afterward, eat then. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, I think, a good way to apply that. So
Yeah.
these are some really great, you mentioned the awareness goals, tracking intake, maybe eating more slowly, the planning goals, like figuring out like your grocery shopping, preparing meals ahead of time. Talk about nutrient awareness, which, some big ones, getting more protein, eating more stuff that come from animals and grow from the ground instead of, things that come from a box or a bag. That's like a real big awareness thing, I think, or nutrient thing. I think all of it's awareness. That's kind of an all encompassing now that I'm thinking about it. So these are great. So you've got just like a quick summary, just the importance of habits and how much better it is for the longevity and consistency. And you've mentioned some habits and kind of like all that. So now I just kind of want to know, like, how do I make these things habits? Do you have any helpful tips or some like real like actionable advice? Like if you want to establish a habit and you've created these process habits that are going to help you achieve that outcome goal, like how would you go about implementing that in like, so our listeners can go today and start either create their own habits or start implementing, maybe one of the habits we mentioned?
Sure. And there are some great habit books out there. You can kind of look around for them. But what I like, let's take planning as an example. If you're somebody who eats out like most of your meals, you're not going to come home and start cooking like 7 days a week all of a sudden. So I always tell people you have to personalize it, like I said earlier, so that you can kick its ass.
A guaranteed win.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You have to make it a guaranteed win. So if that's cooking one meal a week or planning one meal a week, that's fine. You start with one and you move on from there, right? Next week, maybe it's 3 or 5 or 7. And eventually you're planning all 21 meals or whatever. So personalizing it has to be, I always try to make the habit super obvious, right? Like sometimes I play around with habits, but it has to be something that you understand what you're doing. And you want to make it frequent. So it has to be something that you do every day.
Okay.
So obviously nutrition habits, we eat every single day. So that's why it's really easy to work with a habit-based approach in nutrition, because it's something that we do every day, right?
So what about things like workouts where we're not doing that every day? Or maybe our goal is 1 per week. How do you make that a frequent thing?
Right. So piggybacking, thank you for leading in there. Perfectly, Mike.
All right.
Piggybacking it off of something else that you already do in your day, right? So every day I brush my teeth, I drink my coffee, I get up. Those are all like situations that I can trigger doing something new, right? So even though it's a workout and we're not really, doing that every day necessarily, I wake up and I think about working out and I go, shoot, is it Monday or is it Tuesday? Because I planned on working out on Monday. So, okay, it's Monday. I got to go and work out, right? So I go work out in my basement for 30 minutes or something like that. I wake up the next day and it's like, oh, it's Tuesday. Okay, I don't have to get up and work out. But I might get up and work out just because I'm already up and I've already thought about it. So triggering is really important for those habits that don't happen every day. And it's always about increasing frequency.
So I love that concept. And I talk about this. I mean, this is what we're going to have to do another episode, because I could talk about habits all day and I know you could too. It is one of my favorite topics, but like you talk about triggers, right? And one of the best ways that you can establish a new habit is to create it around an old habit as a trigger. And so like you mentioned the workouts, right? Like you wake up from your alarm clock, you go work out. Like that's a tough one, right? But like maybe, one thing you can make it easier to work out is to be prepared, like have your clothes laid out, right? So maybe at night when you set your alarm, you will then immediately go, or you brush your teeth and then you immediately lay out your workout clothes for the next day. Use the habit that you do every day of brushing your teeth to establish the habit of laying out your clothes for your workout. Or, if you need, I was talking to a guy on the phone the other day that needed to, he told me every time that I bring my lunch to work, I eat healthy and I do fine. But every time I forget to bring my lunch or I don't pack my lunch, I go to Taco Bell every single time, And so one of the things we talked about was, okay, you eat dinner every day. So every day, immediately after you finish eating dinner, stop, go package a little bit for your lunch for the next day. Now you've packed your lunch, put it in the fridge. It's ready to go. You aren't going to go to Taco Bell the next day. You're going to eat healthy. And then you gave some time for your food to settle and you can decide whether you're really hungry for seconds or not. And so it was kind of like a double whammy, but we use that old habit of eating dinner every day to create the new habit of packing your lunch, which is going to help him achieve his goal of not going to Taco Bell, eating
Right.
healthy at lunch, and
Right.
help him reach his goals. And so I,
Yeah.
I love this idea of the trigger that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Do,
huge.
do you have any other tips besides these triggers for getting, these habits established, or like really sinking into habits?
I think you just really touched on a good one, which was actually like if you don't do the thing, that you just forgive yourself, move on. It's just
Yeah.
move on to the next, right? Like, oh, I forgot my lunch. I'm gonna eat a Taco Bell, right? And I move on. So yeah, I think that that's super, super important. I think people get hung up on perfection, and that's really where that whole failure success thing comes in. So it's keep moving forward.
Yeah, I really like that. And that's always a big, forgiving yourself, and maybe that needs to be a habit. Like when you screw
Yeah.
up, you forgive yourself, for like, because that's a lot of people get discouraged just because they mess up, and failure is part of the process, guys. Like it's going to happen. You're not going to be perfect out the gate. Nobody is. I mean, even after, some of these
Nobody's
things.
perfect. There's
Yeah,
no
I mean,
perfect.
guys, Susan and I have been doing this for a long time now and are pretty well established in our fitness habits. And guess what? We still screw up. I mean, it happens. I mean, so, well, do you have any, well, first off, guys, we're doing a new thing where after the first episode, I had somebody message me and say, "Hey, Mike, it was really great. And there was a lot of great information. But I was listening to it in my car. I didn't take notes or anything. Is there any way we can get some notes?" And so now what we're going to be doing is putting together a special too long, didn't listen, or, I was driving and listening, PDF cheat sheet where we're going to put all of the big takeaways, and a little bit of bonus material in there too.
Yes.
And so you'll be able to download this. So, have contact information for Susan, and so where you can follow her and all of those things. So be looking for that. Once I get it up, I'll put it up with the podcast. But anyway, before that, Susan, do you have any final we're just gonna have to cut it and let this be
Yeah.
it. So
That's
we're gonna have to
okay.
do another episode, because I think we
You
could
and I
talk
just
about
like to talk.
yeah, me too. And we could talk about awareness. Like we could do 30 minutes just on awareness, I think.
Sure.
And so, do you have any final tips, things you want to hit home, things you want to reiterate, something new you want to add, your top, you know, thing.
Yeah. No,
related to habits
the last thing that I'll say is one thing that we didn't talk about that I think makes it really helpful for people is feeling like they're not alone or isolated when they're doing this, and feeling like they're together with other people doing the same thing is always super, super helpful, which is why I really try to put all of my clients into some kind of group situation where they know each other. I do this in person and I do this online as well,
Right.
because being together is really important, and having a community of people that support you and get what you're doing is super, super important. So that would be the only thing else I would add. I would say if you're trying to do new habits, like finding a buddy, finding an accountability person, even if that's for a lot of people, that's a coach at first or forever, or finding a group or friend or family member that can support you in that way, and really check in with you. I know, Mike, that was huge for you while you were losing weight, was to have somebody who you were accountable to. You don't have to be alone, and you don't necessarily, it's not as that helpful for you to be alone.
Yeah, I had a friend that, he knew what he was doing and I didn't. And he would call me or text message me every single day for probably the first 30, 45 days that I was doing this, way back, when I was first getting started years ago. And it was super helpful. So, I mean, having that, maybe you're doing it with a spouse, that's, if you can get your spouse on board and work together, you're supporting each other's habits, you're picking each other up when you're each having a bad day, you're both, you're taking turns prepping meals, whatever it is, like that's a huge, huge thing. Or if it's just a friend, I did a diet challenge with one of my buddies. He was struggling to lose weight. And so we just had a bet, and between himself and myself, whoever could lose the most weight in a certain period of time, the losing party had to buy dinner for, us together, two couples, and
Sure.
and that was a lot of fun. Of course, I'm so competitive, I wasn't going to let him beat me. So I went on an extreme cut. But yeah, no, having somebody and the groups, I'm a big believer of groups. You guys know about the Fastlane Fitness community. Susan has a fantastic community. And just so you know, I mentioned this earlier, but her company is called So Fit Wellness. You can find it on the web. There's a website. She's got a Facebook page, community. She recently got into Pinterest. So I know a lot of my listeners and followers are men. So you're probably not on Pinterest. But for any ladies that are listening, she's got some really cool content up there right now. But I will post all that kind of stuff in the show notes.
Cool.
And you can follow her back. Her community is awesome. It's smallish. There's about 150 people in there, which is pretty awesome, though. It's a good group, but it is active. I mean, there's stuff every day, people checking in on each other. It's really cool. So check it out. Get in there. Any final thoughts?
That's pretty much it. You nailed a lot of it.
Awesome. Well, Susan, thank you for doing this. We're definitely going to do it again. It was
cool.
Episode 2 of Bourbon and Barbells, red wine edition. It was awesome. So you guys have a great night, and be sure to look out for the cheat sheet, the too long didn't listen cheat sheet, which if you made it this long, you did listen, but maybe you just want the notes. So check that out for more tips and actionable habits you can start putting in place today. Later, guys.